So what's with the camels in Quartzsite? Camels on city signs, camels made of metal and plaster and ceramic and wheels, camels on menus, camels painted on the walls, camel at the Family Dollar, even actual camels on Main Street, camels everywhere. This camel in the cemetery. The cemetery itself is named after the guy who started the whole camel thing in Quartzsite. This is the site of the grave of a guy named Hi Jolly.
Hi Jolly, hey Jolly, 20 miles today, by golly, 20 more before the morning light. Hi Jolly, hey, I gotta be on my way, I told my gal I'd be home Sunday night.
Back in the 1830s, U.S. civilization was expanding westward, but there were some big obstacles. There were deserts, mountains, raging rivers. Lieutenant George Crossman was studying the problem, and he came up with this idea of bringing camels into the picture.
For strength in carrying burdens, for patient endurance of labor, and privation of food, water, and rest, the camel is unrivaled among animals.
Nobody really paid much attention to Crossman's report for over 10 years, after which time his friend Major Henry Wayne brought the idea to the attention of Senator Jefferson Davis of Mississippi. When Davis was appointed Secretary of War in 1853, he pushed for the camels to be tried.
I again invite attention to the advantages to be anticipated from the use of camels and dromedaries for military and other purposes.
President Franklin Pierce thought it was a good idea too.
Camels, yeah!
Though they were still skeptical, Congress appropriated $30,000 to buy some camels. A ship called the USS Supply was dispatched with Major Wayne aboard and picked up the first batch of camels. Despite horrible weather, terrible conditions, all kinds of other bad stuff, the camels made the crossing to America just fine. Better than fine. One camel had died en route, but 6 babies were born. They arrived in the care of 8 men hired as camel herders. Among them was an Ottoman Turkish citizen of Greek-Syrian descent, about 25 years old at the time, named Haji Ali. He was born Philip Tedro and took the name Ali al-Hajjaj when he converted to Islam, and then he was awarded the title of Haji when he completed the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. When he arrived in the U.S. with that batch of camels, he was calling himself Haji Ali, but Americans couldn't understand that, couldn't pronounce that, so that's how he became Hi Jolly.
Yeah. Haji Ali is the name, or if you prefer, as your barge driver so greatly called me, Hi Jolly.
That's a scene from a 1976 movie, a slapstick comic retelling of the camel story.
Mulberry Square Productions bravely presents
Honks.
Honks, the story of 16 camels and the men who loved them.
It stars James Hampton, who you might remember as the bugler Private Hannibal Dobbs on the show F Troop. Hi Jolly is played by Gino Conforti, who I recognize from all kinds of TV guest spots, Love American Style, The Partridge Family.
Origin, Arab, education, Oxford.
I don't actually think Hi Jolly was Oxford educated, and he for sure wasn't an Arab. But hey, it's not a documentary. But that's not the first movie about the Camel Corps. 1954's Southwest Passage is a Western that revolves around a bank robber who pretends to be a veterinarian so that he can hide out with the army and then becomes responsible for a herd of camels. Now, it is not supposed to be a comedy. It is pretty funny, though.
Hey, mister, he's heading back to Arabia.
In Southwest Passage, Hi Jolly's a minor character, one of a group of stereotypical Arabs bowing to Mecca and getting bullied by soldiers through the whole movie.
Friends. Caterwauling heathens, that's what they are.
This is this big scene. It's the only one, I think, where his name is actually spoken.
Cleat break just above the knee.
That's too bad. How do you know what to do?
No!
It's the only thing we can do, Hi Jolly.
No, my expert, no!
Go ahead, Doctor.
The troops had to learn how to mount and pack the camels, but it was actually their personalities that took the most getting used to. Camels are pretty chill if you treat them right. They're smart and they don't seem to have any objection to performing whatever task you might put them to, but camels do not put up with abuse. In fact, they fight back. You whip them and they'll kick you, they'll bite you, not to mention they're going to spit at you, and their cud it's a pretty vile substance to get hit with.
I hate camels.
In the very first test, a 6-mule team carried 1,800 pounds of oats and took 5 days to complete the trip, while 6 camels were able to carry twice as much oats and made the trip in 2 days. Their usefulness was proven over and over, and the government bought 50 more camels. Things changed a little bit with the election of James Buchanan as president. He appointed a guy named John Floyd as Secretary of War. With Franklin Pierce and Jefferson Davis out, the Camels lost their biggest government allies. Floyd kept the program alive, though. He just took it in a slightly different direction. The new territory badly needed a road, and the guy to build it was Edward Fitzgerald Beale. He was a military hero. He was an outdoorsman. He was formerly the superintendent of Indian Affairs in California. But Beale was best known as the guy who first brought gold samples to the East in the 1840s. Basically, he's the guy who triggered the gold rush. Beale's contract required him to take 25 camels with him on the road survey, and he was appalled by this idea. He fought it tooth and nail, but there was really no getting out of it. Pretty soon, he was a convert.
Sometimes we forget they're with us. Certainly there was never anything so patient or enduring or so little troublesome as this noble animal. They put up with any food offered them and are always up with the wagons, and withal so perfectly docile and quiet that they are the admiration of the whole camp.
High Jolly was the lead camel wrangler on the surveying of Beale's wagon road, and that road would eventually become part of the famous Route 66. High Jolly participated in another test. They were in the Mojave Desert. Most of the mules died. The equipment had to be abandoned, but the camels not only lived, but they led the expedition to safety. After the expedition was over, Secretary Floyd asked Congress for the funds to buy
1,000 more camels.
But before he could get approval, then came the Civil War in 1861, and that pretty much stopped the camel experiments. High Jolly traveled with a group of them to Fort Tejon and later moved some of those to the Los Angeles Quartermaster's Depot. Several camels that were left behind at the fort were captured by Confederates who abused them and killed them. The Confederate soldiers didn't really like the camels, which is ironic since their champion, Jefferson Davis, was now the president of the Confederacy, and Henry Wayne, who was instrumental too, was a Confederate brigadier general, as was briefly John B. Floyd. Somewhere along the way, I guess the file on the Army's camel experiments must have gotten lost because the government put them all up for auction, and when they did that, they said that they hoped civilians could find a good use for the camels since the military experiments had ended in failure. But They didn't end in failure. Jefferson Davis was reviled as a traitor after the war, and the camels were his pet project. So, as one monument in Texas says, the camels were a practical success, but a political failure. They sold for cheap, and they ended up giving rides, working as pack animals for miners, appearing at circuses, running in camel races, for entertainment. And then their owners, when they got tired of them or they got too old, they often released them. And wandering loose, they were just these great big pests. So they were hunted for sport, for food, for fun, and for fear, and they started getting wiped out. When the last of the Army's camels were abandoned in 1866, the handlers were basically abandoned with them. High Jolly stayed in the Southwest as a prospector and then also worked on and off as a U.S. cavalry scout for many years. In 1880, under his original name, Philip Tedrow, he finally became a citizen of the country he had served so well. That same year, he married Gertrudis Cerna in Tucson. They had 2 daughters, Amelia and Minnie, and later they had a son, Fernando. But like a lot of us, High Jolly had itchy feet. So by 1885, he had gone back to work pack mules again for the Army in their campaign against Geronimo. This is the last photo of him, taken in 1896. With his team of 6 burros. More than a decade later, in failing health, he went back to Tucson, but Gertrudis wouldn't take him back. Around 1898, he moved to Quartzsite, which was called Tyson's Well after James Tyson and the well he dug then. In these later years, High Jolly wasn't exactly prosperous. A lot of people were suspicious of him due to the weird habit he had of kneeling, bowing, and praying. I guess we had the same attitude back then that we do these days toward embracing Muslim immigrants. Still, he did have some friends and some supporters. Arizona Congressman Mike Smith tried to get him an Army pension, but he had never formally enlisted, and during most of his service years, he'd been a foreign national, so that wasn't going to happen. He was in his 70s by that time, and High Jolly was living off of handouts, like so many people in the driveways of the truck stops that are right around here near his final resting place in Quartzsite. Philip Tedrow, Haji Ali, High Jolly, whatever name you want to call him by. He died in 1902, reportedly while walking a desert road from the Colorado River to Wickenburg, searching for a legendary camel someone claimed to have seen roaming in the desert. Stories say that he was found dead the next day with his arm draped around the camel's neck and with a slight smile on his face. I don't know if that's true, but it should be. It's a great story. Hi Jolly was buried here in the old Tyson Wells Cemetery, which is now named after him. Originally, his grave was marked by a simple wooden marker, probably a pile of stones, because I think that was the practice at the time. But in 1935, the Arizona Highway Department erected this pyramid tomb to mark the site. Its purpose was to bring attention to and honor Hi Jolly's pioneering role in the highway system. Today, it's one of the most visited historic sites in the Southwest.
Hi Jolly, hey Jolly, 20 miles today, by golly, 20 more before the morning light. Hi Jolly, yeah, I gotta be on my way. I told my gal I'd be home Sunday night.
Although he was largely shunned during his life, at the end of his life, today's Quartzsite has embraced Hi Jolly as a hometown hero, along with his camels. If you get here at the right time of year, you can ride one, like Kat and I did. That way you'll get a chance to see the world through the eyes of Hi Jolly, Haji Ali, a celebrated Muslim immigrant who helped to settle the American West with camels.